It was just a year ago when inflation was starting to rear its ugly head. The inflation rate for the 12 months ending last August was 5.3% in the U.S. Speaking at the 2021 Economic Symposium in Jackson Hole, U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said this.
Inflation at these levels is, of course, a cause for concern. But that concern is tempered by a number of factors that suggest that these elevated readings are likely to prove temporary.
That ended up not being the case. Today, inflation in the U.S. stands at 8.5%. It's even higher in other parts of the world. Knocking down price increases has become job one for Powell and many of his fellow central bankers.
There's rarely been more uncertainty in the economy than we've had right now.
Economist Stephen Weiler of Colorado State University refers to a strong job market and continued consumer spending at a time of little economic growth and high inflation.
That combination is not something that we're used to as economists.
The key question now, how aggressively does the Fed continue to raise interest rates to cool the economy without triggering a serious recession?
Chairman Powell is in a tough situation. I think their eyes are on the inflation ball.
The Federal Reserve, of which the Denver branch is a part, has an especially full plate this year. In addition to the inflation challenge, it's also being pressured in Jackson Hole to combat global warming. Environmental activists say they've tallied about $4.6 trillion in financing of fossil fuel projects by the world's 60 largest banks after the Paris Climate Agreement was reached in 2015. The Fed has begun to study the issue, but these folks want action.
We were asking them to set portfolio limits and penalties on fossil fuel finance for financial institutions who are contributing the most to the climate crisis.
The Federal Reserve has traditionally had two mandates: fostering a strong labor market and maintaining a 2% inflation rate.
He feels like the employment side is being taken care of, so he can focus on inflation. I think that's my guess as to what he's going to do.
Last August, while downplaying rising prices, Powell said tightening monetary policy too quickly would be wrong.
Today, with substantial slack remaining in the labor market and the pandemic continuing, such a mistake could be particularly harmful.
A year later, in his annual speech to the symposium on Friday, Powell could signal just how much further up borrowing costs will go.
I'm kind of waiting with bated breath like everyone else.
It's like threading a needle with a very tiny hole, he says. Can the Fed and other central banks knock down inflation without sending economies into free fall? Hendrik, Sybrandy, CGTN, Denver.